Well, this is a project that really is going to enable me to focus on three different things. One, I'm going to be repotting something. This is a wonderful sunshine ligustrum. It's a southern living plant, and you guys may have seen a video that I did a while back about transforming these into something of a bonsai or a topiary form by removing a bunch of these small branches. And I'll put a link to that video below. I had two of these, and one of them got broken by an unnamed perpetrator who is also my photographer. Anyhow, I wanted again to have the symmetry of the both of them, and since this one was starting already to get a little bit root bound, and because I wanted some fall plantings, I decided that I'm going to transplant this into these urns that had some different things in them. Now, another reason I wanted to show you guys this project is because I was at Home Depot yesterday, and they have sunshine ligustrum there now. They also have the seasonal color I'm going to use in this project, this wonderful purslane. So if you're at least in the Oklahoma City area, or probably just about nationwide, you can find similar plants at your Home Depot, or you can always buy them online. So at any rate, I am going to try to recapture the form. I've let this go since I knew I was going to do something else with it. So I'm just going to slough off the new growth at the base. I'll do more on that later. And then I am just going to start my transplanting process and show you guys how I am kind of torturing this to make this happen. Now, I need room around the perimeter of this planter to incorporate some seasonal color into this design. Now you can see that the diameter of this pot, even though this pot has more height and more depth to it, the diameter is just about the same. So I need to recapture some space around the circumference, and I'm going to do that. You cannot torture all plants like this, but you can torture this sunshine ligustrum, I've discovered. It's just tough as nails, and you can even do it this time of year. Just make sure once you get it planted that you put it in a fairly sheltered area and that you keep it well watered and initially actually kind of well fed to get the seasonal color going. So I'm going to start out. This is a frequently asked question I get. What about the gravel that is on top of the pots? Well, basically I just put it into the garden wherever I need gravel, and if any of it has worked its way down into the root ball, well, that's just fine because it'll give it drainage, and I am not worried about that in the least. So now I have watered it very well, because even though I'm going to butcher it somewhat, I do want to make sure, look at how root bound it is already. This, I don't know if you can see, Stuart, come close. Right here was the original size of the plant itself. And you can see it's already put on this much growth just this summer. So it's that growth that I'm going to take off. And you can see, even though I just watered it, it's so root bound that it's not even really holding the moisture around the edges. It's just holding the moisture down right around the plant itself. So actually, by roughing this up and removing a lot of this density to the root ball itself, I'm actually going to help it a little bit and encourage fresh new roots. I'm going to take the rest of this off. Now, ideally, what I want is to be able to plant a minimum of one, but maybe even 2 or 3 of this orange purslane. Actually, they're calling it pink, around the edges. Now, what I like about this combination is that this should come back next year. I will mulch it in gravel and hopefully it will come back next year. So, first of all, I'm going to check the depth to see. I could probably remove a couple of inches from that because I want clearance at the top for watering and for some gravel. So I'm going to start out from the bottom. I'm going to get on the other side here, Stuart. Make some room. You can see, obviously, I put a tarp down because I'm going to make a big old mess. And then I am using, I talked about this a little bit in a previous video, an old bread knife, which just is the perfect tool for this. And I am going to literally just slice off. You can see it makes pretty quick work of this. A round of roots at the bottom. Now by abrading this root zone, it's going to send out new feeder roots that will then be able to absorb moisture and nutrients much more easily. And I want to make sure I get that roughly even because I do want it to sit squarely in the pot. I'm going to check that again. Yep, that's going to be just about right, I think. But notice how little room I have around the rim. Now the bottom is filled with all sorts of garden debris and a bit of compost. But you can see I don't have enough room even to plant a 6-inch pot of seasonal color, and that more clearly defines where the original root ball was. So what I'm going to do is, with my serrated knife, I'm going to take off some of this root action on the side. And you may be asking, oh my gosh, what is she doing? All plants cannot tolerate this, you guys. So you want to make sure that is a not very happy time, so I'm going to take it off. You want to make sure that you have a tough candidate. And that's one of the reasons I really love this Sunshine Ligustrum. Now while I'm down here, I'm going to take off more of this foliage growing at the base. You can easily see, if I allowed this to, that it would be a very dense shrub all the way down, but I like this creating some transparency in the foliage so that you can kind of see through it. It makes for a more delicate plant, I think. And of course I like that topiary form. Again, I did a video on creating this, and I'll put a link to it below. So by doing this, just like when you hurt yourself and you scratch yourself or you get an owie, your body starts telling itself to heal and to grow new cells. And that's what this pruning, this root pruning, is going to do to this ligustrum. So let me see. I still haven't gotten back into the original root ball. And I just planted these at the beginning of the season. So you can see now that I have created more room here around the edge. At this point, excuse me, to make sure, and on potted plants, you guys, you asked me what I feed things with. In the garden itself, in the garden beds, I use organic fertilizers, typically Espoma, but when I'm watering my pots, I'm not so fastidious, unless they're pots with food in them. This pot has good drainage, and I'm just going to make sure that that root ball is really saturated so that moisture gets all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to let that drain a little bit. I'm going to add a bit of Osmocote, this long-lasting pelletized food. I probably could put more in there, but I'm not going to. I have a rough idea of how much should go in there. You don't want to overfeed your plants. Okay, now put this out of the way. What I'm going to do is put a foundation of really rich new soil down at the bottom. because I don't want there to be any voids that the roots from either the ligustrum or my new annual planting would start to grow into, because if they grow into a black hole, they're going to dry out and the plant will suffer. And I don't want that to happen. It looks like I'm going to need some more potting soil. But for right now, when all else fails, I'll just take some of this that's already here. This gravel will do nothing but help drainage. Okay, so now I've got this pot of purslane, and what I'm going to do here is the same thing. Water it really well, because I'm going to traumatize this a bit too, you guys. You can see it is also just about on the verge of becoming very root bound. So I'm going to see if this is 2 plants or 1 plant. If it's 2 plants, sometimes you can kind of cut them in half. Let me see if I'll be able to separate this. I probably could, but that's awfully close together. Sometimes what I'll do is take my knife or even my fingers, and like the ligustrum, this purslane is very tough. That might be distinctly enough. Yeah, okay, look, I'm going to separate that. It is 2 plants. And this does 2 things then. This gives me 2 plants then, instead of just 1, to cascade down the side. It also narrows this plant so that it fits into this space. It's just a miracle. It's also a way to kind of economize, you guys, because then I don't need as many plants. I can use 1 plant for the purpose of 2. Okay, now I'm going to go get some more soil. So while I do that, Stuart, if you would show them how I've got this same color that goes back into the potager, and how there is going to be a rhythm of that color throughout that kitchen garden in the back. So now that I have more soil, let me torque that so you guys can see it and move this original pot out of the way. Already looks pretty good, just like that. Now I'm going to add this additional soil, making sure that I pack it down in there pretty well. This will be great soil to refresh and reinvigorate the shrub, the ligustrum, and this purslane, which, by the way, you guys, is edible, and it really is good. Now, it's related, of course, to that annoying weed purslane, but that annoying weed is also edible. And periodically, it's a great thing for kids when they come to visit. I show them how they can eat their weeds. They can't eat all weeds though. Okay, now here is another economy saver. Over here, I've got some florist picks. And ideally, I would like this purslane to completely fill the outer rim of this pot. But I don't have any more pots of this purslane to put in here, and I don't want to have to go make another trip. So I'm taking one of these floral pins, and at a root node, or a leaf node rather, I'm going to secure it to the soil. And where I secure it to the soil, it's going to put out new roots. And this will then spread much more quickly and fill out the perimeter of this planting. And I can do it. You can see I practically have already gone completely all around the pot. And this was just with one 6-inch plant. Now, if I had found this in 6-packs, then I could have just taken the 6-pack cells and put them around the rim without having to torture it too much. But this is going to be just wonderful in here. And I am someone who likes a more limited palette in my container plantings now. I don't know why. I like the more sophisticated look of just a couple of colors, I think, versus just a whole orchestration of them. So now that I've got that in place, I'm going to put some gravel on it, which will do two things. Actually, it does multiple things. It keeps squirrels out, it keeps moisture in. It will also weigh down the tendrils of this purslane. And if there are any voids in here, you can hear it falling in there. It will fall into the crevices of the pot itself. I'll give it a tuck. I'm going to water it in again. When I get it in place, which I will show you momentarily, when I get it in place, and these are lightweight pots, you guys, so even I can move it. These were some of the containers that I aged earlier in the season, and I'll put that link below too. But doesn't that look pretty? So if you guys want to replicate this, this Ligustrum is available now at garden centers. Like I said, I found it at at Home Depot. It's also available online through Home Depot. So once I get it in place, I'll see if I want to do any more thinning up here. I can also, to thicken up this purslane, I can give it a little trim around the edges, but by fall, this is going to be spectacular, just in time for the mums and other annual color that I've got in the potager bed to bloom in light colors. So I hope you enjoyed that.